So the ultimate relationship is between you and you, in essence, between you, your physical self, and you, your non physical self, between you, identity, and you, non local, non identity, and whatever you want to call it, unity consciousness, God, source, your non physical self, your inner being. And all of your physical relationships, identity to identity, so personal identity to personal identity, is a reflection of your relationship with your higher self, your non physical self, your God self, your true self, your, you know, your inner being, and every definition that we've put to that non physical part of ourselves. So, all of your physical relationships, so you with your daughter, you with your ex, you with the potential of every other being, you with your parents, your mom, your dad, your siblings, if you have any, your cousins, your friends, everybody, you and the clerk at the grocery store, is a reflection of your perspective in relationship to you and you. And the crux of this global transformation is realizing that we are expressions of our non physical selves and we create our reality. And this is a holographic universe, as they say it, or things are being reflected sort of on the surface of your bubble. And so, whatever perspective that you have in this physical reality, for example, what you think a relationship ought to look like, what you think your relationship to your daughter ought to feel like, what you think your relationship to your ex ought to be like, and so on and so forth, with your parents, even with the clerk, the bank clerk or the grocery clerk. Whatever ideas you have fashioned in your inner being, in your self, is the reflection of that. And so once you tend to somewhat of the only relationship that really matters, which is between you, and letting your higher self, inner being, guide you within your life experience without, obviously, ideally, any no limitations and no perspective, but the one reflected through you, you'll get a combination of different relationships and different um, perspectives towards these relationships. And so ultimately, we can't even start to imagine what our relationships will look like in the future when we've all realized that we're this one God source incarnated in this physical reality, and that we know that we create this reality. So none of us are there yet, and some of us are along the way. Well, all of us are along the way. And so it's about you tending to your relationship with you, all the while realizing that it's a reflection of your imagination and belief systems and whatever you wish to really be will be, depending on your degree of belief towards it. And so sometimes that's not necessarily easy to understand or live by because we're so engrossed in the physical life living. But if we just took a minute to pause and to realize that whatever we've been thinking about our relationship, regardless of what kind of relationship it is, that that person, other person, has given us or reflected to us exactly what it is that we thought in every moment. And that always changes. And that's the dynamic of different relationships. And so the only thing one can do is to imagine and fathom and believe in the ideal relationship. So that could be done through just thinking about the kinds of relationship that you want, and source energy will pattern themselves through you so that it's reflected in your reality. Or, and actually, it doesn't need necessarily to be one or the other. And you, at the same time, think about what the relationship with you and your inner being can be. Is it a relationship of doubt? Do you doubt that you're a non-physical being incarnated in this physical reality, and therefore you reflect doubt in your relationship? Are you confused about your relationship with your inner being, and therefore you project and get reflected back confusion in your relationships, either with your daughter or your parents, or with your significant other, or with your boss, or with your friends? So once you know that you're an eternal being with a soul, and that the nature of who you are is blissful and is good and is loving, that'll be reflected upon the many facets of the other individuals that come in and out of your life. And so it takes a little bit of practice to try to change our perspective in that way, because we haven't been taught. In fact, we've been taught the complete opposite of trying to condition someone else or something else into fitting in the box, rather than understanding that we're the ones that create this box in the first place. And if we take this a little bit further, when we feel, experience something that we don't necessarily like or that we feel uncomfortable with, regardless of whether it's facing a situation or another person or a relationship, rather than, because our emotions are our vibrational guidance system, by understanding that whenever you have a negative emotion towards somebody else, it's that you have a negative belief system between who you who you really are and who you think you are. And so every time that you have a negative feeling towards someone else, it's because of a belief system that you have in place between who you are, who you truly are, and who you think you are in this physical world. So I'm going to try to get an example. Oftentimes, when we think that somebody else is being an asshole or a jerk or not being understanding or supporting, it's because we've disconnected from the support of the universe and of our source. And it's because we're being reflected back the misalignment of realizing that we are all this one universal consciousness, and that the other person can also be connected. And so once you start seeing from that point of view, from that elevated point of view, you see that whatever the other person might be doing is simply a misalignment with the source of who they truly are. And at the same time, you also being connected with the source of who you truly are. And so it's not always, actually, we say it's not always necessarily easy to figure it out. But if we would just take a second, honestly, 3 seconds at the most, to pause and to really remember that, we'd have no conflict, regardless of what the other person is doing. Because we would know that we're simply seeing it, and it's because of their misalignment. And at the same time, perhaps it's reminding us that we're misaligned also from who we truly are. And so, my advice is to connect to the source, the purity of consciousness of who you really are. And there are only two states of being: that which is aligned with source and that which isn't. And every time you ask yourself, well, am I being aligned? It's probably because you're not, or it's probably because we're not. Because in that total state of pure consciousness, there is all that is, as it is, perfectly accepting of everything that is. And once you start seeing through that filter, and not the filter of social conditioning, of how much money, the job, the kids, the this, the that, and all of the conditions and all of the objects that come with life. So once we start seeing from the subject place and everything is tinted with the filter of that, we start seeing things for what they truly are, which in a sense is just an illusion, yes, but we came here to experience this illusion, and we could feel it in our bodies, in our minds, in our psychic vibration. And so the ultimate question always is, because we have free will, what do you want? And more specifically, not just what you want in the object, but how do you want to feel? What do you want to put out there? What do you want to see reflected back to you? And by tending to your relationship to who you truly are, by knowing that, by taking some time to sit, lie down, and to feel that ineffable awareness that permeates everything, and to try to steady your consciousness within all of that, when you do that and you're comfortable there and you bask in the wonder and the magnificence of all of it, you'll that's exactly what you'll get reflected back. Every relationship, the relationship with your squirrel in your backyard, the relationship to the birds that come so close because they know and they can feel, the relationship with the spider that scared you, but that you were such in a good place and you're like, fuck this spider. Well, it came to you because it felt you, and that's wonderful. And the relationship with everything, like the artist's relationship with his creation. And so it might seem that we've gone sort of off topic, but not really. But it's about really tending to and understanding the relationship between you, and everything else follows. And it takes a bit of practice. And you fall off the wagon and you scrape your knee. And you're like, fuck, I'm never getting on that fucking wagon again because I scraped my knee and it hurts. And then you're like, yeah, but I can't just keep dragging myself. And then you get back on the wagon and you're like, yeah, I forgot how good it felt on the wagon. And just being transported and guided by the wave of all that is. And some people get frustrated because they really want a relationship. Some. I was like that. I would get annoyed. I had someone telling me that I had to work on myself, and it's not it's not working on oneself. It's not working on your identity. It's having the audacity and the balls to shine who you truly are. And the only way you can do that and get that reflected back to you in every relationship that you have is by knowing your source connection to source, or your connection to source and all that is, or God, or Christ consciousness, or unity consciousness, or pure consciousness, or total awareness, or the wave. So, yeah, so to get back, I digressed a little bit. People get annoyed when we tell them, yeah, but I just want a normal relationship. What does that even look like? Did you ever ask yourself that question? And you can't plan it. You can't plan every single second of every single day for the rest of your life if you find someone. So, what do you want it to feel like? What do you want the base of that relationship to be? And yeah, you can conjure it up and you can think about it for a little bit and then it'll manifest. Jagged. These little thoughts that you've had will manifest in reality, in what you see reflected in your reality. But if you tend to your connection to source and you express yourself from that state of beingness, you won't have to try to think of all the little details that you want in your relationship or try to make up your relationship as you go along. And so I come back. People get frustrated that, or people, I guess, don't understand the the link, the background link between who you truly are, expressing yourself reflected back into your reality. And that's because nobody's worked on the crux of realizing that We really do create our reality. And you create your reality whether you're conscious or unconscious of it, or whether you're creating it by default or you're creating it deliberately. And once you really start to explore that with an open mind, you get it. You understand. And that's the way the cookie crumbles. So deal with it as best as you can. Yeah, that's all she channeled.